Thank you very much. I am honored and delighted to be here. I'm here with friends from the foundation. Thank you very much, with the honorees and with the guests. It's a distinct honor to be here. The Russ Berrie Award for Making a Difference celebrates New Jersey's unsung heroes, everyday people whose extraordinary work makes a real difference in the lives of others. An unsung hero is really somebody who has not yet been recognized for the amazing work that they're actually doing. I think that's a little bit of a misnomer. While it's likely that America has not yet heard about these people, the people they are impacting and affecting certainly have. It's sort of like if you're on a boat, it's nice and quiet, and then the boat starts to rock, and you're being hit with waves. The reality is a boat that passed by, maybe some distance away, maybe some time ago, created the waves, and the wakes are finally reaching you. That's the impact that people have when they make a change in their community. People downstream and for a long time receive the benefits of that work. Each of the honorees are doing something special and something different and something that's really near and dear to you. So I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you about what's near and dear to me. I hate waste. So a little bit about me. From a brief introduction, I'm an aging geek. Admittedly, I'm a long-distance cyclist, I'm a master gardener, and I'm a very active Israeli folk dancer. My gifts are outside-the-box thinking, although those who know me well know that I don't even function with boxes. I connect the dots between disparate ideas. I'm committed to social responsibility, and I don't believe in the word impossible. As I said, my passion is I hate waste. As a first-generation American, I grew up with the mantra of finish what's on your plate, kids are starving in Europe, and some younger people may have grown up with other countries, Africa or India, but for me it was Europe. And I never as a kid really understood what did the food on my plate have to do with some kid in Europe. On the other hand, I did grow up not liking the waste of food and ultimately time or energy or money or emotions. And I've applied this throughout my entire life. I was one of the first people in the country to buy a hybrid from Honda. This was 12 years ago this month, and I still have it. My home, we have chickens. The excess from our kitchen goes to the chickens, and out comes either eggs or fertilizer. In my other activities, I also still am focused on elimination of waste. As I said, I'm a long-distance biker. I live in West Milford, and we have lots of hills, and I'm a very good hill climber. So you nurture your energy going up, and you're only focused on the next 10 feet over and over, which really sets a good way to deal with the challenges of life. Even in my return to Israeli folk dancing after a 2-decade hiatus, I realized that when you're making a mistake, don't stop, keep moving. Or put another way, when you stumble, make it part of the dance. And it's a lesson I've learned and I've applied to other things. So after suffering an overly abundant harvest in my own garden in 2007, I realized I wanted to donate. I didn't want to go to waste, and I found a shelter in my town, and I donated. And one of the things I learned when I made the donation was that, from one of the ladies there, was that they don't get fresh food. Who knew? In 2008, Bill Marsh, who's a New York Times photographer, did, for me, an iconic tipping point type of photograph. He built a map of the United States represented by food lost in this country by a family of 4 in a month. That's about £1 a person a day, by the way. That really struck with me. In 2008, when I took over a community garden in West Milford, the people in the township also said they didn't like the waste of food. My off-the-cuff reply was, if we're going to have an ample harvest, the very least we can do is to get to people in the community who really need it. And that changed both my life and the future of the country. I had no idea that 40% of the food in this country is not consumed. I had no idea that 50% of the produce in this country is not consumed. I had no idea that in the 15 minutes I'm going to be talking to you, 1,400 tons of food in this country is going to be lost, and 17,000 or so tons of food in the rest of the world is going to be lost in the 15 minutes while I'm talking to you. I had no idea that the food we lose can fill up the Rose Bowl every single day. I had no idea that there were 50 million food insecure people in this country, or that 1 out of 4 children under the age of 6, unless they're black or Hispanic, then it's 1 out of 3 are growing up in a food insecure home. I had no idea that the American food bank system, which is so brilliantly designed to feed people processed food, really couldn't handle locally grown fresh food. And I had no idea that the lack of fresh food in the American food bank system was responsible for the fact that 3 out of 4 young people who apply for military service today are rejected because they're not fit to serve. And I didn't know that 1 out of 3 kids today are growing up diabetic, and we're quickly going to 1 out of every 2. Most recently, and I just realized this, I didn't realize that the country that produces the most of our produce, California, is going bone dry. And that means that 12% of California's water is being thrown away because we're not eating half of the produce. Mostly, I didn't know what I didn't know. The problem in this country, turns out, isn't that we don't have enough food to feed ourselves, it's that we're not using the food that we already have. And we have, as a result, become an increasingly well-fed but malnourished nation. So in 2009, I registered the domain AmpleHarvest.org after having that discussion with the community garden. I spent the $9 to buy the domain, and given that I don't like waste, I had to do something. I couldn't just let the $9 go to waste. So I designed a nationwide program to educate, encourage, and enable gardeners like myself to be able to donate food for the first time to a local food pantry. I had to find and register pantries and get them on this registry, pantries that you can't find on the internet. And I had to create a national awareness program using social and traditional media and other guerrilla marketing, I guess you'd use the word, to tell the 42 million growers in this country that the days of jars, cans, boxes, no fresh food was history. And I had to do this simultaneously with no name recognition, no marketing dollars, no staff at first, no expectation that the existing infrastructure, the food banks, the food pantries, the government, the growers or existing food programs would be at all receptive to this idea. In short, I had shot an arrow at night into the fog at a moving target, and I nailed the bullseye. I knew it pretty fast when Google stepped up and fast-tracked AmpleHarvest.org to a $10,000 per month advertising grant month over month, and then was a year or so later quadrupled to $40,000 a month. I knew it when weeks later the Huffington Post had an article in which they talked about AmpleHarvest.org, and they said that they thought it would impact the country's future health care costs. This at a time when Congress was debating Obamacare. Lastly, I knew it when only 150 days after I had launched AmpleHarvest.org, the 1,000th food pantry had registered on AmpleHarvest.org. I had clearly found a solution to a problem that most people didn't even know existed. AmpleHarvest.org was embedded with a number of Jewish concepts that I had grown up with, and in no particular order. One of them was protection of the environment, since wasted food is an environmental problem. That's, of course, Tikkun Olam. Another one, which is interesting, was the idea that by keeping the donor and the recipient, who might in real life be friends or neighbors, from actually knowing who they each are by maintaining anonymity, that the recipient of the food was not going to suffer the humiliation if he was or she was picking up food when their friend was dropping it off. And that's the second highest of Maimonides' discussions on the types of charity you can give. The highest, of course, just being giving somebody a job. And basically, the last one is simply the idea of gleaning, which is in both the Book of Ruth and in Deuteronomy. But AmpleHarvest.org also had a couple of quote-unquote American ideals built into it. That given the opportunity, anybody can become the game changer for their community or country. That we have the strength as a nation of individuals to do amazing things, and that given the opportunity, most of us will. 11 months later, I was named CNN Hero. 18 months later, my wife and I were invited to a reception at the White House to meet the President and the First Lady. Before I walked into the stateroom, I looked above the door, and there was the Great Seal of the President of the United States. And I was wondering, how did I, an aging geek with a ponytail from North Jersey, ever end up here? What had I done that others hadn't or couldn't do? And I realized the answer was nothing. The difference was that I sought something, and I did something other than nothing. But other than that, that was it. I didn't come with the normal collection of things that you'd expect game changers to have. I'm not a billionaire, I'm not a movie star, I'm not a powerful politician. I did have a passion and a determination to see it through. So what's been the outcome? Well, today, and an update on the numbers that you had given on the introduction, today, more than 7,260 food pantries in all 50 states are part of AmpleHarvest.org. That's 1 out of every 5 in the nation. According to a survey we're doing right now, 20% of the gardeners in this country have already learned about AmpleHarvest.org. And many of the pantries are reporting that they've received fresh food. Indeed, one food pantry that was interviewed by Yahoo News and ABC News in December of 2014 reported that a full 1/3 of the food that they distribute during the growing season they receive thanks to AmpleHarvest.org. It's working. Here's what I've learned. 94% of the gardeners who garden actually grow food, and 82%, given the opportunity, will donate food to a food pantry. 69% will actually grow more food explicitly to donate to a food pantry. And although you can get a tax credit for donating the food, 67% said they didn't really care. They were doing it because they didn't want the food to go to waste and they wanted to care for their community. I also learned that the vast majority of people who go to a food pantry when there's fresh food deeply appreciate and value the fresh food when it is there. And this is late news. Thanks to an economist at Cisco, which is the company that really runs the backbone, if you will, of the internet. His official title is the Director of Economics and Research at Cisco. That's important. Using publicly available data from 2012, when our budget was just around $200,000, under half of what it is now, I learned that the estimated value of the food, plus, and I quote, the estimated value of the impact in addressing the cost of the nationwide food insecurity, thanks to AmpleHarvest.org, this is his numbers, was $197 million. That's 2012 information. We've grown a lot since then. In 2009, I created a national campaign to eliminate the waste of food. In 2011, I was named a Russell Berrie Foundation Unsung Hero. A lot's happened since then. We were awarded the Points of Light. This past May, I was nominated for the World Food Prize by Vint Cerf, who's sort of considered the father of the internet. Last September, the United Nations Secretary General stated as food waste is a personal item of his, and I had the honor of being invited to the United Nations during the General Assembly. And it's continuing. Later this year, the Ad Council will be launching a $90 million campaign to tell America that we're wasting food. 6 years ago, AmpleHarvest.org came about as a solution to a problem most Americans didn't know about. Now it does. Like many innovative solutions, AmpleHarvest.org, despite all the accolades, awards, media coverage, and even global replication, by the way, Leked Israel, the Israeli food bank, has built their version of AmpleHarvest.org with our assistance. It's still in its early growth cycle and still struggles with the financial support many young organizations have. It's not because it's a bad idea, but because it's an idea that no one had ever had before. It's built a national infrastructure to eliminate the waste of food, and as a result, get the people fed. For those of you who do or are about to start your own programs to leave the world a little bit better than you found it, here's what I learned. Be innovative. Innovation involves risk, and that takes a lot of hard work. Do it anyway. Make sure that people don't try to push you back into the basket of old ideas that they're familiar with. I've heard a lot of, I really like what you're doing. Now do it my way. For example, people keep asking, how much food are people getting? Instead of, how large an opportunity are you creating to stop the loss of nourishment? No one's ever thought of building a virtual solution to the waste of food. Imagine, as I did, a funnel with hundreds of gardens and gardeners at the wide end, all of whom have an overly abundant harvest of heretofore wasted food. And now a single food pantry at the narrow end of the funnel, and all that excess food getting to a food pantry in the community that's never had it before. Now multiply that by 7,260 funnels across all 50 states, And that's what AmpleHarvest.org has accomplished. Many have a hard time visualizing a program where the measure of success is the number of funnels of food rather than the food itself. The bottom line is that disruptive solutions call for disruptive measures of success. To this year's winners, I was in your shoes in this very room a few years ago, and to you and to whomever may be here next year, I have some advice for you. Don't let anybody ever tell you it's impossible. I firmly believe that to do the impossible, you must first believe it isn't. Don't be afraid to risk success. Mistakes are okay, but be original. Don't make your own twice and don't repeat anybody else's. Stick to your vision, stick to your mission, and be adamant about it. It keeps you where you can make a difference and keeps you out of where you can't. Learn to say no with some confidence and a smile, but you're going to usually be right. Be a leader, be an inspirer, and share your vision. Dr. Martin Luther King didn't say, I have a plan. He said, I have a dream. Don't assume that you need to be rich or powerful or famous. I think creative, nimble, and small actually does a lot better. And take solace in the fact that you're improving the world in a way that no one else has. And even if you're not fully successful, it's still a success. May 3rd, 2011, I was one of you. AmpleHarvest.org was in its infancy. Most of what has occurred today had not yet then occurred. AmpleHarvest.org is still a program that at that time was still a program run by one aging geek. There was no business plan, there was no revenue stream, and there was not a clear understanding of where it was going to be going at the time. I stood here then very nervous and excited. I knew in my heart that AmpleHarvest.org was something special, and my role was ultimately to become the evangelist for the message. That the solution to hunger is in our backyards, that the opposite of hungry isn't full, it's nourished, that people, even those who themselves are cash-strapped, can reach into their backyards instead of their back pockets to help their neighbors in need. AmpleHarvest.org started as a one-person program. Today, it's got a tiny staff and an engaged and passionate board that we're both looking to expand, but we're looking to expand both to meet the workload that's ahead of us. Most importantly, AmpleHarvest.org is inspiring America's 42 million gardeners to be the agent for change in their community, to do something about the horrific loss of nourishment this country suffers, to turn back the epidemics of childhood obesity and type 2 diabetes that are being made worse by the lack of fresh food in the local food system, and to realize that solving some problems doesn't have to come from Washington or some high-priced charities, that it can come from small, innovative nonprofits that use innovation to nurture the energy of the people in the communities across the country. As you drove here this morning, you may have, as I did, see people starting to work in their vegetable gardens. And they will most likely grow more food later this year than they can use, preserve, or share with friends. What you didn't see were their neighbors in need who are struggling to put food on the table. And what you also didn't see are the food pantries that are struggling to feed them, one only being 4 minutes away from here. I started by saying I hate waste. My answer was to make sure that the gardeners that we've seen this morning and millions like them had the opportunity to donate the food when they harvest it. I did it by assembling AmpleHarvest.org and getting together an amazing team of people using technology, social and traditional media, viral communications, and everybody's passion to enable these growers to connect directly with a local food pantry in their own community to do so for the rest of their gardening life. It's working because people have been given the opportunity to solve two problems at one time: the waste of food and hunger in their own community. When I last stood here, AmpleHarvest.org's then expanding impact, its food print as I call it, was a fraction of what it now is. And its food print will be now a fraction of what it will be in the future with your help. I urge all of you to take a moment when you get home to visit AmpleHarvest.org/local to learn what you can do in your own communities to change the face of food waste and hunger in your community. AmpleHarvest.org is bridging technology, ethics, efficiency, stability, and the inherent desire we all have to do good together. It's been best described, in my opinion, by Jen Chapin, Harry Chapin's daughter, as simply beautiful and beautifully simple. We're here this year to honor Russ Berrie's Unsung Heroes, people you'll soon be meeting for the first time. AmpleHarvest.org is working to turn America's 42 million home and community gardeners into unsung heroes. We'll never meet them, but each will be a ripple in the future of their community and country, because the food that has gone to waste in the past is instead going to go to nourish the people in their community, and that food will not be wasted again. The idea and the ideal is no food left behind. Thank you very much.